Hi there. Today I'm here with Andrew MacLean. He is a developer educator at Twilio, and if you ever run across him, he's very easy to spot by his colorful glasses. I'm very excited to talk to him about working at Twilio, what he's building there, what life as a developer educator looks like, and probably what he is building the next few weeks. Andrew, how's it going?
It's going fantastic. I was saying just before we got on camera and officially started recording, I started my day at like 6 a.m. today. So that was perfect. I've had just enough coffee and time to really be in the perfect state for chatting all things Twilio tech.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about Twilio first.
Awesome.
So when I learned about Twilio, that was way back in time. They were just the SMS company when sending text messages on the web was all people cared about. That was probably pre-iPhone era. Nowadays, they evolved a lot. And what do they do?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the Twilio of the sort of early 2010s especially was definitely sort of came into its own in this world of we were the platform that allowed you to have a really easy API to be able to send an SMS as fast as possible. Twilio has kind of kept those grassroots of having that really developer-focused communication platform, but now expanded to so many different areas. So interestingly enough, Twilio actually started out as a voice company. So sort of when you were calling numbers back in the early 2000s and it was press 1 to get to this location, press 2, that was all Twilio under the hood, but then sort of moved into the SMS space. A number of years later, bought SendGrid and moved into the email space, and then sort of over the years has kind of added different communication tools to its stack. But really now, as with so many companies out there, we are really trying to be this sort of full stack communication platform that also leverages or allows you to leverage AI in sort of as best of a way as possible. And so a couple of years ago, Twilio acquired Segment, which is a sort of data aggregation platform, for lack of a better term, that sort of allows you to have all of this knowledge around your users, and now because it's tied into the Twilio communication platform, sort of use that to improve communication. So the goal sort of Twilio has always been simple. Let's make communication as easy as possible for developers to build. Now we're able to do that and leverage a lot of these other tools because we've got this full stack ecosystem of communication tools, everything from the channels to the data supporting it.
So is it fair to say it's basically a CRM with the communication channel built into it?
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, a little bit. But also, you don't need to have the full CRM. So I think what's made Twilio really powerful as a platform is you can have just the whatever pieces that you need of this puzzle, you're able to come to us for. So if you're using somebody else that's maybe not Segment for your data, and you want to use Twilio for your SMS, like we're able to plug in so many different places. So yeah, if you want to come into the Twilio ecosystem and just use us for everything, we've got sort of every product that you might possibly want is there. But if you're looking to just sort of pull in a piece of what we have and rely on your existing systems, that's really, really easy, just because at the end of the day, everything that you can do on the Twilio platform is possible through an API. And so that makes life really easy for somebody wanting to integrate Twilio into their stack as they're starting to explore it.
So it's more about building blocks rather than like a full-blown ready-made software for you.
Absolutely. And there's some ready-made software tools that Twilio has. So like a number of years ago, Twilio created this platform called Flex, which is sort of a call center platform that was mapping a bunch of these pieces together. And we've had a product that was in developer preview previously called AI Assistance, which was sort of all of these pieces put together into a product. But I think we've seen over the years that what makes Twilio so attractive as a tool is the fact that you can kind of plug and play as you want, and take advantage of more features as they come out, which definitely over the past few years, like I think we started in voice and explored a lot of areas, and now voice is having its moment. And so we're able to kind of go back to our roots, see what we did successful there, and then add sort of the new tools and features that people are looking for in those spaces.
I love it. I mean, I mean that in the most loving sense, but like communications is really down to the core of any business, right?
100%.
And so probably Twilio is not in the most sexy space in tech. They are not building rockets. They are quote unquote just building the foundation.
Yeah.
So what's your role then as developer educator there?
Yeah, I mean, to try and make it cool and sexy. And I mean that in like the broadest sense. What's interesting is you're absolutely right. Twilio at a core level is such a kind of not boring tech, but it's not exciting, right? Like when we started out, we were building like, these, you call a number and press 1, 2, or 3. That's not super exciting. But what was amazing is early on in the DNA of Twilio, it was focused around developers. There's actually a book that was written by one of the founders of Twilio called Ask Your Developer. If you've never heard of that before, it's an amazing book written by Jeff Lawson. And Jeff actually was
down in the show notes.
Yeah, Jeff was one of the pioneers actually of developer relations. So I remember I went to a conference in London when I first started in DevRel, and one of the final talks was, here's the history of developer relations as a practice. And so that's sort of evangelism and education, all these things. And it's interesting because Twilio was one of the first sort of companies doing modern DevRel. So DevRel's been around for a really, really long time as a practice, but this sort of way that we look at it now, running meetups, doing live streams, sort of like the way that we look at DevRel now was kind of defined by Twilio. So even early days, one of the things that the developer network, which is our DevRel team here at Twilio, said was the 5-minute demo made Twilio famous. So you could go in and an evangelist in 5 minutes would have somebody up and able to send an SMS. And I think that's why SMS became such an incredible part of the Twilio DNA, was because it was like you could get it out there incredibly, incredibly fast. And so I think Twilio's really been focused since early on of like, let's make this exciting. Let's make it fun. Number of years ago, Twilio did sent code into space. So they literally launched a rocket and sent like Twilio code into space, and you could text it. Over the years, there's been a ton of different. It's funny because I think when you look at them from the outside, they're like, oh, this was a PR stunt, but it was like, from the builder perspective, like this is incredibly, incredibly cool. And so working with developers, both as part of the Twilio team, as well as external ones, figuring out really interesting ways to excite developers. And there's a thing we have internally called like the Twilio magic, which is like our kind of core values that we have at the company. And I think that also corresponds to what we try and do is like, let's make these experiences as magical as we possibly can, because boring tech is boring, but it can enable really exciting things to happen.
So obviously I need to take anything back because you do send rockets.
We do send rocket. I love that you said that. I was like, we didn't even prepare for this. Yeah. So yeah, we sent a rocket into space. So many different things that kind of have been at the focus. And now it's funny because we actually have an evangelist who works for Twilio, whose entire, I don't want to say shtick, but his thing that he does is Twilio magic. So he does magic powered by Twilio. So sending text messages, phone calls to like deliver magic tricks. And I remember we went to San Francisco last year as a promotional tour for our Signal conference that happens. And we did magic tricks in the street in San Francisco, and people absolutely loved it. So
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first experience with Twilio was like probably more than 10 years ago. I ran a hackathon and I got Twilio as one of the sponsors, and I was really like, oh, wow, cool. A company that isn't even remotely connected to what we are trying to build here. But they did the majority of the sponsoring. So they're very active in the community.
Yeah. And we actually, so I think as with kind of all companies, like things grow and change. Twilio just turned 17. So we're an old player in this space. And so our developer network has been growing and changing. And so like 10 years ago, we were kind of in the meetup place, and then we shifted to some exciting things that I'm pumped to talk about. But then now I think everybody's seeing, now that we're kind of on this side of the pandemic, everybody's looking for these community events to get back into. And so we're actually running a ton of hackathons and meetups kind of around North America in a way to kind of help bring back that magic that Twilio helped to contribute to for so many years.
Yeah, love it. The question is, well, how does a company profit from like a bunch of college dropouts on a random hackathon at the other end of the world sending some SMS? So how does Twilio transfer the value that is in DevRel to actual business value?
Yeah. And I think it's a big question that if we can answer on this podcast, we will be able to make so much money. And I know this is like a conversation that has every time that a bunch of developer advocates get together, they talk about what's the value we're providing. So like when you think about, so my team, wider team at Twilio is called the Developer Network. And like as a little bit of kind of like Twilio lore, that was based around this idea that there was a network effect when you were interacting with developers. So if you impact 5 developers and they all have a network of 5 people, then technically you're interacting with like 25 or 30 different developers just through that one. And if you can make that exciting, that experience really shareable, but also like repeatable for them to do, you as the evangelist or the educator or whoever doesn't need to be the one that's there delivering it, because now the people that you showed how to do this that made it so easy for them can go and show all of the other folks that are out there. And so I think it's this network effect of doing these meetups and these smaller engagements that we're able to sort of see building brand reputation, but also building relationships. I mean, at the end of the day, it's called developer relations. And I think we often forget about it when we're going out into the world and we're doing all these cool things and we're jet setting to different countries. But like at a core level, so much of what we do is about trust building with developers to show there's somebody at this company that cares about you and is there to support you and represent you. And so you could choose 17 different products that all do the same thing, but you're going to choose this product because you've built a relationship with these folks.
So how much of that would be like in-person events versus online content or webinars or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's a magic. There's probably no magic mix. I think in-person events, it's so funny because when you look at sort of all of these developer sort of relations teams, like for a long time, it was about getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then sort of at the same time, you had a lot of these meetups happening. So Twilio, for example, was involved in all these meetups like you were talking about, but also was building this conference called Signal, which came back last year, and another bigger one this year, which was sort of this huge event. Like at its peak, it was like thousands of developers, like Macklemore was playing at our conference. We had Bill Nye there as a keynote speaker. So like we had these sort of two sides of this event. And then sort of the pandemic hit and we went all virtual. And I think that we all haven't quite figured out what the proper mix is there yet. And I found it interesting to see now that we're sort of in this world of like, we did all these big and small events and then we did all virtual. And now everybody's been kind of trying things to see, does hybrid work? Does like a mix of these work? I think everybody's trying to figure out what the mix is there. And I think at the end of the day, the real answer is diversification. So just like an investment, if you put all your money in one thing, you're likely, if that thing does well, you're going to do great. If it doesn't do well, then you're going to be in a rough spot. And I think it's the same thing exists in the world of developer advocacy and developer relations, is if you can find those things that work for you, then that's going to make it easier. And honestly, for some companies and for some developer relations teams, big events are the way to do it. For some, those small touch points are there. And for others, like their audience, are captured in this virtual world. And so it actually makes sense for them to double down on some of these virtual things.
So what does it mean for you personally? I mean, how does your day-to-day job look like? What's your average, let's say not day, but week or maybe month? Are you traveling a lot? Are you writing documentation? Are you reaching out to people on Discord? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I'm in an interesting position, and maybe this is helpful or not helpful, but Twilio also is this unique beast. So I came in through the traditional, not traditional route. I never went to school to be a computer scientist. I was a youth worker for years. I went back to school to become a teacher and just happened to be building initiatives and programs that were connected to the tech industry. So I kind of made my way in as a community manager, doing more of the sort of Discord events. And then I moved into a developer, more of an evangelist role. So going to a lot of conferences and doing live streaming, and then moved into more of an education role, which historically education in the developer relations space has been you write documentation or you write blogs. And at Twilio, because they really created this space, there are literal teams. So we have a developer advocacy team, a developer evangelism team, and a developer education team. Most of the educators that exist out there are doing blogs and documentation full time. Our evangelists are going to conferences full time, and then our advocates are building community programs. So they're building our champions program, they're building our Discord community. I live in this weird space in that I was brought on at Twilio about a year and a bit ago to build out a curriculum for Twilio. So developer education or developer training, I guess, is sort of a more unique space that I'm in at Twilio, had gone through a number of iterations, including back in, I think it was like the mid 2010s, Twilio created a platform, a learning platform called Twilio Quest. Have you ever heard of Twilio Quest before?
Not really.
Okay.
No.
So Twilio Quest, it was based around this idea that developers love games. And if you can combine this world of gaming and education or training and learning, then you're going to be able to like hit on these audiences in some really unique ways. And so Twilio,
you can earn badges for task completions and stuff.
Even a step beyond that. So we've kind of got the gamification idea of badges, which a lot of folks are doing, but Twilio Quest, actually, they hired a design team and they built like an 8-bit video game that you would play to learn Twilio. So you downloaded it onto your device in sort of the final version, and you created a character. It was sort of like playing Pokemon Red or whatever, like on the old school Game Boys. And you walked around and you interacted with screens, and it would give you your information. And then you would need to do things with the Twilio tools to kind of solve the problems in this world. And it was really cool because then you would earn badges and you would actually earn skins for your avatar. And so if you ever look, a lot of Twilians still will have their avatars that they're using across the Twilio ecosystem, but also out in the community, because it was such an engaging way of like, this avatar and all of the things it has is sort of a visual representation of your learning. And so Twilio Quest existed for a number of years, and my role was kind of the next evolution of Twilio Quest. So Twilio Quest was sunset sort of during the pandemic, and then we kind of switched more into the video creation scene. So speaking of Cloudflare, so Craig Dennis, who's at Cloudflare, used to be at Twilio doing all of the video content, kind of along with Lizzie Siegel, who's another big developer advocate that was at Cloudflare. I am sort of the remnant, not remnants, but like the person who came in to be sort of a Craig ed training person. And what that meant was I had a lot of freedom in terms of what I was focused on. So a big part of my day-to-day for the first sort of 4 to 5 months was just looking at the ecosystem of learning tools that existed within Twilio and trying to make a map there, while also running some other programs. So we released a series called our our Liftoff series, which was a YouTube series focused on sort of like Liftoff and learn SMS and voice. So very kind of traditional learning pathways. Watch this tutorial. I also facilitated our Level Up workshops, which are online webinars that would run where we would have builders on, kind of touching on the more technical side of some of our tools. And then this has kind of evolved now into me being more involved in some of the building experiences. So I helped build out the in-person activations for our Signal conference last year and traveled around supporting that. So sort of hands-on experiences for developers, all of this to kind of learn and get some real insight into what does this learning experience look like. And for the past, I think 4 or 5 months, I guess now, my life has really been day-to-day building out a brand new project, yet to be named. It'll be coming out very, very soon. But
before we get into this, let me try to extract some trade secrets from you.
Okay.
Because all of what you mentioned was like quite expensive. Like you send people to conferences internationally, you hired an entire design team. So just for the moment, suppose you're a small company, maybe also producing business software or developer tools or something, maybe even bootstrapped.
Yeah.
So what would be a good way to start interacting with the developer community on a low budget?
I love it. Live streaming. I cannot say enough positive things, despite the fact that live streaming has kind of gone through its peak, I think, during the pandemic. All of the tooling that was built out during that time has now kind of graduated to the new, like the next level. So you're so much more, the barrier to entry for live streaming is so much less complex. you are able to create content that you can reuse. So you can share this on your Twitch channel, on your YouTube channel. You can put it through an LLM and turn it into a blog post. You can use this as a way to just engage with your community. I used to work for a company previous to Twilio called Battlesnake, which is where I really got introduced to this idea of live streaming code. And at the end, before we kind of we got acquired back in the early 2020s, and we were live streaming everything. Like we would do a live stream of our feature review process where the CEO of the company would go on and kind of go through our backlog and share like, here's the thinking that I'm going through here. So it's interesting because you're like, nobody wants to necessarily watch 3 hours of this. And I would say that's true for the videos that you're going to watch afterwards, but you can cut those videos any way that you want after they're made. What you're really doing with live streaming is it's similar to just being on Discord and having a conversation, but now they can put a face. You can have a real conversation. There's an authenticity that comes through the video medium that I don't think you get anywhere else. And because you've got sort of like the live chats that are there, because you've got the different tooling that exists there, you can basically integrate it within your existing stack, and it's incredibly inexpensive. I like OBS, which is a software you can get on your device, is free and open source. Platforms like we're using now, Riverside, are like more expensive, but not prohibitively so. StreamYard is another one. All of these tools were so much more expensive and complex and feature limited before. They're all now feature complete, they're affordable, and they allow the gateway into this world to be so much more accessible.
Blast out to all platforms, actually. You
Absolutely.
can put it on Twitter, you can put it on YouTube.
100%.
Twitch, whatever.
Yeah.
Love it. So, and the way of how you come up with content for that is just like demos or maybe internal retros, or what do you showcase doing such live streams?
So my favorite live stream that I ever did, so I would create series. We created a number of them at Battlesnake that were different things. When I was at DevCycle, which I was at just before Twilio, we were a feature flag company, and you're like, that's a boring piece of tech as well, right? Like it's a Boolean statement in your code. So I did this series called Does It Toggle, where I would go live for 2 hours, and I would literally I would go in completely blind to a new framework or language, and I would try and add our feature flags to that tech live. And so it was this live learning experience that I needed to do when I was building out demos and when I was doing all of this anyways. But instead of doing it behind the scenes and like struggling to learn this, I could do it live. Folks would often come in and answer and like provide feedback. A lot of the time it was just kind of like silly stuff, like doing esoteric languages, and like it was never really going to work, but it wasn't necessarily about that. It was exploring some of the core concepts here. But the interesting thing is it's such a like, I think so many people that work in this industry are so creative, and like they're already doing these things outside of their work. If you can bring the work and life kind of connected, like I think our CMO said this recently, like life integrated work instead of like work-life balance, so that you can pull in the things that you're passionate about. I love learning. And so my focus was, can I connect the things that I'm doing out there to the learning? And did I have a ton of viewers that were on there? No. But was I able to repurpose all of that content for different purposes? And anytime somebody came in and said, can you do feature flags in this random language? I could point them to this video and I could say, go to minute 20, 30, and you'll be able to see it. Yeah, exactly.
Love it. So people learn probably more about new languages or new frameworks than they learned about the feature flag from Twilio, and still it sticks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's great too, like, cause a lot of these things, even when somebody leaves, so I've been gone from DevCycle for a couple of years now, well, a little over a year now, that content still exists out there. Like programming languages tend to not disappear in a meaningful way. Like they just sort of change their focus area. And I think that those are they're going to live there forever. And the interesting thing is, if you think about it, somebody's going to type in random esoteric programming language feature flags, and so few people are going to have done that you now kind of, it's not going to be, you're going to see 1 million views in like one day where you're going to get if you do something on the newest AI model, but you are going to get this long tail of engagement of people looking for this topic and finding your video because it's been there for so long.
I love the long tail behind it, because if you're looking for how do I program in esoteric language XYZ, probably one of the first things that come up is, okay, here's how you can do Twilio with that.
Exactly. And I think that
that's a cool idea.
Yeah. And I think just to speak to that, I think the world of developer relations, when you talk about the value, DevRel has like a long tail value prop. Yes, you can do really cool and like poppy things that are going to really attract folks. But really, we're sort of building the foundation for things one person at a time and building those slow things. So, what I find fascinating is you'll have companies that maybe invest really heavily into DevRel and then they're like, this isn't giving me what I need. But now you look at a company like Twilio who invested heavily into DevRel early on. And now like we've been around for 16 years as a company. The developer network team still exists. It's changed and evolved, but it's still there. And I think that's because Twilio has said, we believe in sort of giving developers this resource and then that it will have long-term impact.
You don't have to answer that question, but do you know of any other company that has a comparable track of record for success in DevRel?
Yeah, GitHub has a massive DevRel team. They were doing things really early. I think Stripe also has been doing DevRel incredibly well for a really long time. There's some other folks in like even the telephony space. So like Twilio, so like Vonage in sort of has more of a European presence, and Vonage sort of invested really heavily very early on in this world as well, to the point that I remember going to DevRelCon, which is like the developer relations conference, and there was 2 team photos that they did. One was you are an alumni of Vonage, and one was you are an alumni of Twilio, and you had just like basically half of the people that were there that were jumping up and sort of like getting into these photos. So I think speaks to the fact of investment. Yeah.
So there's a lot to learn from those lessons.
Absolutely.
But I cut you off. You were talking about the next thing that you're cooking. So now I'm interested.
Yeah. So I'll kind of go, I'm going to just to not kind of to give everything away. I want to kind of talk at like a philosophical level. And I think this will be like Andrew's hot take. And I don't think it's hot anymore. I think it's everywhere. The world of traditional developer training in the world of LLMs and code tools like Claude Codes, and all of these other ones that exist out there.
Just for the record, we are 26 minutes in. We are always counting when someone mentions AI for the first time.
Hey, there we go.
This is 26 minutes now.
Okay, I love it. Is that good or bad? I'm not sure.
Well, we don't judge.
I love it. All right. Well, that feels like there may be some judgment there, but that's okay. You know what? It's one of these interesting things, and then I'll divert back onto the training pathway. There's a great video that I just saw pop up, and it's Ben Affleck of all people, that the actor who's talking about sort of this AI curve, and specifically in Hollywood. And I watched this video and I saved it that somebody shared, and I'll share a link with you afterwards. It's just so on point of this world that we are talking about this because a lot of companies have invested so much time into making this like this incredible like thing that's going to change the world. At the end of the day, they need to, in order to kind of like increase valuation, they need to seem like they're changing the world, even if they're not. At the end of the day, what this is just another tool. So for movies, like AI is going to be another tool, just like VFX. For software development, AI is just going to be another tool, like a lot of the linting tools that you had and like these other pieces. It's never going to replace fully what we do as software developers. Is just kind of shifting the focus of what we're doing. So now we're able to talk architecture. We're able to focus way more on debugging. And I think that world of you can get whatever you want just by typing into a single box is amazing, because it's actually shifted where we need to focus. And it's actually making people stronger critical thinkers if they recognize that and don't just take everything as is. And I think that exists. It existed during the time of just like plain straight up Google. Like when Google kind of took over the main space, there are people that will go and search something in Google and take the top result and never look at anything else. That's putting a lot of reliance onto like search engine optimization of these companies and like into Google being able to serve you exactly the right things. Take everything with a grain of salt and just recognize that if you use these things in a critical way, you're actually going to like increase your ability to deliver exponentially. And I think that's really where AI comes in, is it's this amazing tool that supports us in the work that we're doing and just allows for us to do more than we ever could before.
Yeah, love it. I mean, yes, it's true. I find myself reading more because I read all the thinking and output from the LLM rather than just Googling for a one-sentence answer.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know about you, but I remember when I started to learn programming when I was doing my master's degree. So I was building an LMS and I had built it in Google Sheets and like with some scripts, and it was good. But a bunch of teachers came back and said, "Hey, can you build this?" And so I decided to go teach myself. And I went in the Laravel ecosystem, which at the time wasn't as kind of like huge as it is right now. And I basically spent all my time on Stack Overflow and the Discord and the forums, just like doing exactly what I'm doing, finding a thing that I couldn't fully trust, trying it out, trying to explore this idea. Now it's the same idea. If I accept that these AI tools are basically like a random Stack Overflow user that could be trolling me or is actually knows what they're talking about, then you go into this world of being like, oh, this is just like the evolution of what we were already doing. And it is, it's trained on Stack Overflow. So like rely on the fact that it's probably going to have the same level of trust as you would put in some random code that you find on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. I recently had like a longer car drive, and all these chat tools now support like not only typing, but you can actually talk with them. That was an unpleasant experience because all the output is still designed to be read and not designed to be to flow in a conversation. So maybe that's also something communication company could look into it. Because
absolutely.
My impression was, okay, I have that 2-hour car ride, and I do it on myself, and I want someone to talk to, and I don't want to bother calling someone discussing random things that I saw on the street or that just popped to my mind. Well, that was a disappointing experience. It was like borderline retarded, just because the models weren't optimized for that.
100%. And I think that now we're seeing like voice AI as an industry. And I think I said the same thing about feature flags when I worked in feature flags and all the rest of this. So I think I'm in my world of like a lot of voice conversations is really having its moment. So like every company under the sun is doing something with voice AI. If they're in the AI space, you've got OpenAI, which is doing things, 11 Labs, Whisperflow, like all of these are trying to create these incredibly powerful tools that are focused on making that audio experience seem much less robotic, right? I mean, Twilio launched fairly recently, like we've kind of moved into this sort of AI conversation space. We have this tool called Conversation Relay, which allows for you to talk. It gets transcribed from your voice, and then you can feed that into an LLM of your choice that you bring in, do something with it, and then feed it back. So we're not necessarily doing the processing because there's so many tools that are out there to allow you to do that. But instead, what we're doing is we're providing sort of like that direct transcription, and then for you to go in and optimize whatever AI model that you're looking to use to give that kind of feedback. So I think even in that, this idea of the building blocks, Twilio realized that's a hard problem to solve, to make AI like feel like it's a real conversation that you're having. So if we can enable you to do that in your own way, then that's a superpower that Twilio provides that nobody else does.
Yeah. So now that we are deeply into the AI topic,
I love it.
Let's try to close the circle.
Close the loop.
Because like Twilio or Twilio's offering is basically connecting, as I understand it, connecting existing tools like CRMs or ERPs or whatever business software you have with some layers of communication. So there's a lot of integration work to be done, aka API hacking.
Yeah.
Is that something that still humans would do, or is there like a Twilio MCP server, or do we need to do the integrations manually at all? What is the forecast on integrating a platform or API-based product into the real world?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is so, yeah, we have an MCP server. You can go and find it if you Google Twilio MCP. I think that question of do we still need the hacking, it kind of speaks to this idea of of like, you shouldn't rely on these things. You're going to need the critical thinking. I think you still will need to know how these pieces fit together. It is really the basis of this project that I've been alluding to, which was focused on developer training and this assumption that AI coding tools and the way that we are learning and teaching has fundamentally shifted. People aren't necessarily going to follow a specific pathway to get somewhere. Like, I think there's been so much talk on social media and X especially, about like the traditional tutorial is dead. And I don't know if that's true. I think that the traditional tutorial has its place, even if just to train AI models that are going to go and help you. Like, better training material is going to make the AI outputs better. But really, since we've got the AI to kind of create these personalized like ability for you to go in and sort of like put the problem in and then build a solution, the superpower of a company is, can you show people or give people a reason to go and use these tools, to go and try? Can you give them the problem to solve that is going to be done in an engaging, a fun way that doesn't require them to necessarily be in that industry? Not every company is going to right now have a way to or a need to integrate SMS, but maybe they will in the future, but they don't right now. So how can you give them an experience where they can build towards solving a problem using whatever tooling they want, tutorials, blog posts, AI tools, to go and solve some problem? And I describe this in sort of like a way as like, look at an escape room, right? There's no curriculum for an escape room. There's a bunch of puzzles in there that you need to solve, that you need to rely on your experience, your friend's experience, like whatever resources you want to use, or the phone call that you're going to make to go and solve these puzzles that are all connected together. You still need the fundamental skills, but it doesn't matter how you get them. It's just about solving the puzzle, and you've got a reason, you've got a timeline, you've got some sort of a story that's there. And so escape rooms are like this kind of perfect example of experiential learning. We have this world of like, read something, do tutorials, and then we have this real world experience where like you go and do a job and like you make a mistake and cost the company thousands of dollars. There's got to be something in between, which is experiential, that doesn't require you to like risk it all to go and have that experience. And that's really what we're trying to build at Twilio right now with the project that I'm building. Is let's give an end-to-end experience for a developer that not necessarily mocks their current situation or is a simulation, but is more like, let's use the real tools. Let's not focus on some third-party platform. Let's have you doing the work in an environment in which you would work, using the tools you would want, but doing it in a fun way that is like completely unique to the space of developer training. There hasn't been any innovation, I would say, in the past little while in developer education. There's some folks that are doing really cool things with sort of generating courses through AI. GitHub has like their R&D team that's developed some amazing things of like, I want to learn this, and it generates you a course pathway. I think the fact that TikTok has taken off so much, that you've got reels, like I think we're all so focused on short form that long form things like that are gonna find their home somewhere else. So let's focus on creating this engaging experience.
Sounds like a lot of fun. So can we call it Codename Escape Room?
Ooh, I like it. Let's call it Codename Escape Room. I like that.
So when will it launch?
Yeah, so we're launching at, we have an event in Las Vegas next week. So we're going to be launching internally there. We're going to be launching at Twilio Signal in a few months. So in May, we're going to be launching the official platform into what we hope is going to be public beta, but worst case scenario, private beta for self-serve developers. So in May, it's going to be out there. You'll start to see reference though to it around the Twilio world. Like you're going to start to see these things pop up, and it's going to be very probably vague. And I would say kind of think of like, if you see something that's vague, think of like an escape room. You're always looking around to see like, is there a puzzle here, or is this just a red herring? I think you're going to start to see some of those things around the Twilio in this Twilio world as well.
Do you have a waiting list or something like that?
So we're going to be doing it pretty white glove first, but I know Bas, like I shared out the sort of like early access. So you know a little bit more about what this is going on, but if folks watch this live stream if they listen to the podcast or watch the video and they're interested, just reach out to me on X, on whatever platform that you can find me, And like, we're definitely want feedback from developers as early as we possibly can. So yeah, there's going to be a wait list. And then as we sort of move to May and we go into public beta, like you'll be able to enter in. And I will say the really cool thing about this is the experience is all going to start with a phone number, which I think is something very, very unique for a learning experience. How often are you calling a phone number to start learning something?
Not that often, to be honest. But on the other hand, it is a good fit for Twilio.
Absolutely.
So you keep us posted. And if people want to continue that conversation on X, on LinkedIn, we put the links to your socials down below.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That was a lot of information. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And if anybody wants to see it live, because we're going to be doing a lot of these things, I actually have like a discount code that I can provide for our Twilio Signal conference that's happening in May as well, where we're going to be launching this tool. So I'll provide the link over, and for anybody that's interested, just reach out. We've got some free tickets that you're welcome to get your hands on if you want to come and check out that and a lot of the other things that are going on at Twilio. So feel free, reach out. I'm always happy to chat education. I'm always happy to chat DevRel, and always happy to highlight all the awesome stuff that's happening in Twilio.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.